In this demo, I'm going to be looking at NTAD6211, Network Architecture, Network Domain Administration. For the POE, in the first demo, we have discussed already Activity 1, which was on group policy objects. And this is a continuation of Part 1. So I'm now discussing Part 2. In Part 2, we had to create GPOs, link them to the correct organizational unit, site, or domain, and they told us which settings to specify. In Activity 2, they speak about storage technologies, designing and implementing the file storage services. How will I know how to do this? First thing I need to do is I go to my textbook and I look for storage technologies in the textbook. Storage technologies, you'll see, is discussed in chapter 8 of your textbook. I need to now make a decision based on the case study. What type of storage technology am I going to use? I go through the chapter and then I can see that there's different types of storage technologies, and most likely I'm going to use a RAID solution. Now, if I page through, they'll tell me about the different types of storage technologies, and they are technologies such as IDE, SAS, SCSI, DES, NAS, SAN, and RAID. What are all of these things? When you choose your storage technology, you need to say, I have chosen to implement a RAID storage technology, and this is an example of DES, which is direct attached storage, for the following reasons. Based on the case study, it is a career center with a branch office. The career center has got a server, and the branch office has also got a server. The number of clients is less than 2,000 clients in total. For this size of network, which is a medium-sized network, I can use locally attached storage, or I can use directly attached storage. I don't need a storage area network, which would be applicable for larger networks, or even network attached storage could be an option as well. I can either use direct attached storage or network attached storage, and then you will say, why have you chosen to use either direct attached storage or network attached storage? Remember that you need to implement this as well, because you will need to take a screenshot. What is available to us is like in the CNOS assignment, where you needed to add multiple hard drives and you needed to create a storage pool. And in that storage pool, it was either a mirrored storage or a parity storage. For the server now, we're most likely going to use a storage pool that is parity storage. So it's a type of RAID. So you'll go through and you'll have a look at the different storage technologies that's available here and the ways in which they are connected. So they talk about direct attached storage, or DAS, NAS, network attached storage, is going to be more expensive. Not necessarily, but you'll make a decision between the two, and then you'll justify as to why. Your justification will say because of the factors presented in the case study. Remember, that was what was lacking in your first part when you answered it. We need to link theory to practice, meaning, where do I get the theory? From my textbook, I go and look at what is the options available. How do I link it to the practical implementation? I look at my case study and I see what are the requirements in the case study. Based on the available technology that is available, which was discussed in chapter 8, I then make a decision and say, I chose to use direct attached storage, and I'm going to implement a parity RAID. So I go on and I look at the different information that's available here. They all use serially attached storage. The most common protocol that we would use is SMB. It's also known as CIFS. And then they speak about the switches that could be used, iSCSI, storage spaces direct. And for storage spaces direct, they say it's a new feature in Windows Server 2 2016 that enables you to group disk into a storage pool, thus creating software-defined storage called storage spaces. So this is what the storage space is. What is it? It's grouped together storage pools, okay? Which is what we needed to create as well in for this scenario. Then they speak about avoiding duplication of data in SCSI and storage tiering, and then management with PowerShell. So this is where I went and got the theory from. Now I need to go and implement what I've just learned. So going into my, let's see what the mark allocation is. What are they giving us marks for in this? For storage technologies, it's 10 marks, and they're giving us 2 marks. File and storage services identified as sufficient and suitable for the network, meeting all or most of the network requirements. In other words, make a decision and take a screenshot of what you have chosen, whether it is direct attached storage or network attached storage, and then the type of storage pool that you have created for your storage space. The file and storage services identified are adequately configured. Okay, so this one is speaking about the decision that you made. That's the theory that I was just talking about. And this one is talking about how have you actually implemented it. You're taking a screenshot. The configuration above is functional and specific to the scenario and needs of the network. Now you talk about the network. The case study. So I said you've got a central office, you've got a branch office, and you have to cater for both of them. You'll say what is installed on the central office, what is installed on the branch office. And then the last one says forest domain sites were carefully considered in the implementation of the file and storage services above. Speak about now, like I said, there's two sites. There's a remote office and there's a central office. Okay, so speak about each of them and what storage solutions is implemented on each of them. I can go into implementation now. Activity 3 is on documentation. So before I move on to documentation, now also note that this is only 10 marks. The first one is how many marks? 20 marks. So 20 marks for group policy, 10 marks for storage technologies. So don't spend most of your time on this. Spend very little time on this. Work according to the mark allocation. Then, so half of your time needs to be spent on questions 1 and 2 because together it's 30 marks. Half of your time needs to be spent on activity 3, which is 30 marks. Can you see? All right. Many of us, we tend to spend a lot of time on the virtual computers because we think taking screenshots gives us marks. Taking screenshots does not give you marks. Your marking rubric tells you how the marks are allocated. Is that clear? Screenshots does not give you marks. Screenshot with an explanation, and the explanation answers a question. This is what gives you marks. Remember, you are answering a question paper. You are not watching YouTube videos that tells you which screenshots to take. You take the screenshots, you submit it, and you expect to get 100% or you expect to pass. Some students have failed because the part one, because they just gave me screenshots with no explanations. That does not give you marks. So I should have given 0, but I gave you a chance and I gave you some marks. So a screenshot without explanation is 0. Even your network diagrams as well, like for network architecture B. Many of us have got wonderful diagrams that did answer the question. Some of the diagrams are lacking certain elements, but I'll speak more about that in that module when I do a video there or I do a class there. When you take any picture, when you submit any diagram, it needs to have an explanation. Very, very important. And the explanation needs to tell me how does it answer the question. Very important. What we are doing here is we are answering questions. Again, I'm going to repeat and I'm going to say it is not following YouTube videos, taking screenshots and passing the module. You are here to learn about server technologies, Active Directory. Now this is network domain administration. You're learning about Windows Server 2016. At the end of this module, after you've submitted your POE, you should be able to accomplish certain tasks using Windows Server 2016. So you need to ask yourself, what have you learned in this module? And then what can you physically do? So you would have learned some theory, and then you can say, I've also learned how to configure my Windows server. What did I do in the first activity? I installed Active Directory. I know how to install Active Directory. I know how to create organizational units. I know how to create sites. I know how to create servers within that site. I know how to create users, groups, computers. I know how to name them correctly. Then I also learned about DNS. And what about DNS did I learn? Domain naming system. I installed DNS and I configured DNS so that any computer that is looking for any other computer on the network can be located. If I do an Active Directory search, Active Directory can locate objects using DNS. So that is the purpose of DNS. Then I learned about DHCP. What does DHCP do? DHCP automatically gives out IP addresses to computers on the network. If I have multiple LANs or subnets or different branch offices, I will create a scope or a range of IP addresses for each of the LANs. And I will allow then the server, the DHCP server, to give out IP addresses for any computers on the different LAN segments. Can you see? This is how I'm learning about what is happening in this module. So the idea has to be smashed that I'm taking screenshots and I'm going to pass. That is not the correct thinking. I've explained what the correct thinking is. Now, 50% of your marks is about theory and about writing this document. So focus half your time on this document as well and write sufficient information. We've done videos previously on documentation using the solution. In all of the activities completed thus far, produce a configuration management document for the network solution. Complete the activity by creating this document. Discussing the infrastructure deployment and configuration plan strategy, which is appropriate for the network. Motivate your strategy by including in your report the business and the network reasons for selecting the technologies and configurations of the tasks involved. Now, I'm just going to explain Like I just decided now I'm going to use direct attached storage, and I'm going to configure a storage pool or a storage space that contains storage pools. And I'm going to create a RAID, and this RAID is going to be a parity RAID. Or you could have decided, no, I want to create a mirrored set. For mirrored, I just need 2 hard drives. For parity, I know I need 3 hard drives. Now, that is your network, and your business reasons would be that I need fault-tolerant system. What is a fault-tolerant system? If the hard drive fails, the system is immediately available. Write a report discussing your deployment configuration strategy. Structure your report as follows, and they give us the different sections of the report. Make sure you have every section of the report that's there. I've done this in first year videos as well, and first year classes where I've shown you. Go and put all of the headings, and then even if you've got nothing, start writing something. Now follow the marking rubric as well, because the marking rubric tells you what to put in each of the different sections. Introduction briefly states what the report is about. And it told you here what the report is about. Write a report discussing your deployment and configuration strategy. So this report is about how I installed my servers, that's the deployment, configuration. What did I configure or set on my servers? How many servers did I use? I decided to use DHCP, DNS, and now storage for my file system. How did I configure it? So you are answering those type of questions here. The introduction provides students interpretation of the scenario. So you're telling about what is the report about. You're going to tell me a little bit about what is the scenario and briefly state what the report will include. And it tells you what the report will include. Designing, planning, and installation of the server infrastructure, file and storage services, DHCP, DNS, and network access services. How will the strategy meet and achieve the business and network requirements or goals? List the hardware and software and the network requirements. So they tell you, list necessary hardware, list necessary software, and network requirements. Similarly, go through each of these sections and then answer each of the bullet points here. And that gives you your marks. Remember, we said 50% of the marks for part 2 comes from activity 3, which is writing a report where you need to answer all of these questions. Going and having a look at the implementation now, I go into my server, but before I go into my server, I'm going to check that I've got sufficient hard drives. I need to go to Hyper-V Manager. Which server is this one that I'm working with? I'm working with this server here. On the server, I can go to settings, and then I can see I've currently got 1 hard drive. Now it's not going to allow me to add additional hard drives. Does it allow me to add additional hard drives? If I go onto the SCSI controller and I say hard drive, it does allow me. So whilst it's on, I clicked on the SCSI controller and I said I'm going to add a new hard drive. I click on add, and then it's SCSI controller. It automatically gives me this one. The media now. You can compact, convert, expand, etc. Virtual hard drive, I'm going to click on new. You've done exactly the same process for your CNOS as well. Then you go, the wizard's going to help you to create a new hard drive. You're going to create dynamically expanding, that's fine. What is the name of this new hard drive. So this is my um, NTAD server. I'm just going to put 02 for second hard drive. So HDD 02. NTAD server second hard drive. I've given it a name so I can identify what is this hard drive for. So if there's a problem later and if I need to go and delete a hard drive, I know this hard drive is causing the problem. I can go and delete this one. So I've given it a name that I know what is it for. I'm going to go next. Create new blank virtual hard drive. That's fine. I'm going to go next. And then I'm going to go finish. I'll say apply. And I can see now I've got my original hard drive here, NWAR server 01, and I've got NTAD additional hard drive that has been created. So I say, okay. So what I've just done now is I've plugged in a new hard drive into the server that is running. I'm going to go now into the server. So where would I go? Let me just log on to my server. So whether I'm working in Windows 10 or in the server, I'm going to use my disk management. If I right click on the start, it gives me an option to go to directly to disk management. If I click on disk management now, you will see that there's the new hard drive that I've just plugged in. Can you see? So if your computer is not recognizing the hard drive that you've just created, this is the place that you need to go. From this place, from disk management now, we look, there's my disk here. It is currently offline. See, when this disk is offline, if I go into my file manager here, it will only show me this computer. It will only show me local disk C, and I will not be able to see another hard drive. Even if I try to go now and create a storage pool, so I want to go and create a storage pool, storage space. File and storage, there's it here. Okay. If I go to file and storage, and then I look at disks here, I can see it's appearing as unknown and offline. If I click on storage pool, so I've got only one available disk. Now let's look at when I go back now into my disk management. What do I need to do here? I right click on it. This is my, okay, is, it says it's offline. Right. So the first thing I did, I right clicked on it and I said online. Then it says it's not initialized. So I firstly brought it online. Now I'm going to initialize the disk, the partition table, and I'm going to say OK. And now you can see it's available. It's a basic disk that has been brought online and it's available. I can convert both of these disks into dynamic disks. They are now dynamic disks. Then I went into my server manager and I went to storage pools, and I can see now that I've got there's the additional hard drive that's there, the volume that has been created. So I can then go ahead and then create a storage pool because I've got sufficient physical hard drives now. You can also create a volume on that drive. So it gives me some information about before you create the storage pool. And what does it say? Select the available disks that you want to use. Okay, so I will continue this video, but I've given you an indication in this video about what type of storage to select, how to answer activity 2 and activity 3 from the NTAD part 2. Okay, so another video on configuration here.